Growing up in LA when I was like 13, I was real close with Diddy's younger son. I told y'all what I seen and what happened to me at Diddy house, and y'all finally finna see what the really been going on. His lawyer that he's done paid millions of dollars to fight his case has withdrawn from fighting the case. You wanna know why he's withdrawing from fighting the case?
A lawyer for Sean Diddy, Combs, has quit, leaving the rapper's legal team ahead of his trafficking trial. In New York federal court, Anthony Rico filed a motion to withdraw as one of Diddy's 6 defense lawyers yesterday. He didn't give an explanation, but wrote, "Under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel."
Like, I don't know if y'all saw, but Diddy's lawyer trying to quit. Okay, Diddy. If you're not familiar, Diddy is gonna be buried under a prison. But
hold on to your seats, folks, because it looks like the tides might finally be turning for Sean Diddy Combs. In a shocking twist, one of his top lawyers, who once famously defended Osama bin Laden, has called it quits. Yes, you heard that right. The same legal mastermind who stood by one of history's most notorious figures has now decided he wants nothing to do with Diddy. While the hip-hop mogul still has 5 other lawyers on his payroll, this departure is not the kind of PR he needs. Right now, especially with the firestorm of allegations swirling around him.
He's trying to withdraw from the music artist trafficking case. Anthony Rico filed notice last week that he no longer wants to represent Combs, and he did not give a reason other than saying, quote, "Under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel." Rico has not shied away here from high-profile clients, including represented a terrorism case involving associates of Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda and the New York City Councilman Larry Seabrook during his corruption trial. Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rose now joining us. What would you make here? What would you think an attorney would want to leave such a high-profile case?
We can jump to a lot of conclusions, right? You can say, wow, he's represented all these crazy folks in the past with checkered backgrounds. Why would he not want to continue to represent these folks? I tell all my clients this when they meet with me, that this type of engagement is a relationship. If you're asking me to represent you, it's a meeting of the minds. Yes, it's contractual. Yes, I'll send you a retainer agreement. Yes, you'll exchange funds. But when we remove all of that, it's, do you really like me? Do I really like you? Do I feel comfortable?
Trust, yeah.
Do you trust me? Do you feel comfortable with me advocating on your behalf? Do I feel comfortable advocating on your behalf? And if we come to a meeting of the minds, which I'm assuming they did at some point in the beginning, then we'd come together, my team would send an agreement out, and then we'd work together. But somewhere during the course of the relationship, things happen, just like in a marriage. Sometimes folks drift apart, and sometimes things are let out during the course of the investigation, or I should say during the course of the representation, where you recognize that, hey, I'm maybe not comfortable going the next mile with this case as I thought I was. He said there are a couple of things, and you have to read between the lines. He said there's 2 things. It's effective assistance, right? Or you have the opposite of that, which is ineffective assistance of counsel. You don't want that as an attorney. Ineffective assistance of counsel means you didn't do your job. So he said, I can no longer go forward effectively assisting this person, meaning I can't do my job. In court, because I can't do my job, I need you to grant me the permission, the authority to walk away from this relationship. Basically, grant my divorce.
Is there some possible case here where it could be a conflict of interest?
Though that's normally something that you would do before the relationship. You'd say, hey, have I dated you in the past? Have I dated anyone that you know in the past? That conflict of interest is required. You want to have a conflicts check. You want to ensure that you don't have anything that puts you or the client's best interest, I should say your client's best interest in the crosshairs. And so you run down that and make sure, hey, have I represented anyone that you've known in the past? Have I represented someone maybe that's going against you in this matter? And if I have a duty to say, you know what, I can't represent you going forward. Sometimes a conflict may arise that wasn't disclosed in the beginning. Then you're saying, you know what, you didn't tell me this in the beginning, and now you're bringing this up, I gotta step away. There could have been a number of things that have happened, but if I'm gonna gamble on this, I can guarantee it heads more on just the relationship deteriorating. That irreconcilable differences that you see with divorces is something that you see with client representation all the time.
And could it be a possibility where the client doesn't want to listen to the attorney?
That also happens as well, but again, that deteriorates the relationship. If I'm constantly saying, saying, this is the strategy, this is where I think we should go. And I have a client that's saying, you know what, I don't really agree with that. I want to go a different direction. It's always the client's decision. But I'm going to lay the roadmap. And if I've recognized that this client is not listening to any of the advice that I'm giving, sometimes that's time for you to say, you know what, let's part ways before we get to trial, before we get down to this jury selection. Because once we get to this part, there's not a judge in America letting you step away from the case.
Certainly a high-profile case when you're talking about Diddy Combs right now. All right, Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes, thanks.
Hey, yo, you know who we haven't talked about in a while? Diddy. So let's take a trip on over to prison and see what's all going on. Now, for those of you that don't know, Diddy has a problem. He's going on trial in May for doing terrible things, all revolving around him forcing people to watch Netflix. If you don't know what that means, look in the comments. But see, Diddy's crimes are so bad and they span over so many decades that he had to hire a legal team of 6 different people that all specialize in different things. And of course, Diddy can do this because he has so much money. Now, one of his lawyers, Anthony Rico, just recently quit. Now, to be more specific, Anthony Rico, one of Diddy's lawyers, filed a motion to quit, saying, under no circumstances can I continue as counsel for Sean Combs, meaning I can't keep working with Diddy. But your lawyer can't technically just quit on you, so he says a few other things. He says, look, Diddy's gonna be fine. He got 5 other lawyers. For 1, boy got to start at 5. For 2, look, I talked to the head lawyer, this guy, Mark Agnifilo. I told him the dealio. He said, okay, away you go. Ooh, okay, but really though, Anthony Rico, again, the lawyer who left, said, I can't keep working with Diddy. He has other lawyers, he'll be fine. I talked to the head lawyers, he said, all good. And by the way, I can't tell y'all why I'm leaving because that would violate attorney-client privileges, meaning that he would have to say things about Diddy's case to explain why he's leaving. So he can't.
But let's get to the million-dollar question. What exactly happened to make this high-powered attorney jump ship? Did something behind the scenes make him go, enough is enough? The internet is ablaze with theories, and while the truth remains elusive, 2 major narratives are dominating the discourse.
Can you walk us through exactly what went down?
Anthony Rico has been part of Diddy's defense team since September. So he appeared in court with Diddy when he was first arraigned and pled not guilty to the charges. And Anthony has been kind of this almost kind of public kind of support figure for Diddy as his lawyer. In court, he stands up and points out that Diddy's, children have traveled long distances to be there. He sits next to Diddy, during the hearing, they're talking, they're laughing. So they seem to have kind of a more personal relationship maybe than with, Diddy's other lead defense attorneys who are kind of the ones up in front of the judge. And this past week, he just suddenly files a motion saying that he's withdrawing from the case. And there's not too much detail given, but clearly there was a fork in the road about, something having to do with his case. And he says, like he heard that under no circumstances can he effectively serve as his defense counsel.
Now, some of the terms are a bit confusing. There's like lead counsel and then defense counsel. Sean, he's not his lead counsel. So is this really that big of a deal?
No, and those are all misnomers. Lead counsel, so forth. It's just because they all do the equal amount of work. When they say lead counsel, what ends up happening is if you're in the middle of the court, you don't want 3 lawyers talking at the same time. So they basically said, you'll talk is all lead counsel means. So if there's an objection or something of that nature, that will be the person talking. So that really is a misnomer, lead counsel. Do I think it's that big of a deal? Yes and no. Legally, I don't think it's a big deal at all. But I always tell people lawyers get off of cases for 3 reasons. 1, Mr. Green has not made a gratuitous appearance. You haven't been paid. That ain't this situation. You can assure that. 2, what'll end up happening is if the client insists on lying. Like if a client says, I want to lie or something of that nature. And I don't think it's that situation because we're not even to the point where Diddy is going to take the stand and there's avenues if your client wants to lie and insist on you suborning perjury. 3, we just can't get along. And that is almost always what happens. I've said since day one, I think they're trying the case way too quick. They haven't asked for 1 continuance yet. There are terabytes of information. I cannot see that they could possibly be prepared by the time the May term comes. And it could be the possibility the lawyer just said, I don't want to do it anymore. I really think it means we're not seeing eye to eye, whether it's Diddy or other folks on the team, we're not seeing eye to eye, and I can't go any further.
So he's definitely not said anything about Diddy's perspective. He said that there'll be no lapse in representation, as Sean Combs will be continue to be represented by 5 other attorneys of record. Okay, once again, without violating any aspect of the attorney-client privilege or otherwise providing any details whatsoever on the grounds of supporting the application, the government has been notified of the filing of the motion to withdraw as counsel. Okay, how do you think this looks to people with no legal background, no legal expertise?
I think people have taken it as bad. You know, when a top attorney quits your case in the language used, under no circumstance can I continue. I think people are just pointing at that and say, he can't defend him, you know, and making their own assumptions from there. There have been kind of reports circulating, kind of to what Sean said, was that it seemed like there was a breakdown between Diddy's attorneys about going to trial in May, and that, you know, Mr. Rico wanted to kind of postpone it because there is so much information here. So that's kind of been the attitude or the shift out there. But a lot of people think this looks bad for Diddy. They think it's like almost an admission of guilt from some of the things that I've seen, which of course is not the case.
Yeah, the language that's used out there, you know how it's going to get picked up on. We know what the court of public opinion feels, and we know how information travels. Could he not have said something like, for personal reasons, or would that not fly with a judge?
That would not be anything dealing with anything whatsoever, because the court, if you write down, I want to be off for personal reasons, the court's going to ask what those personal reasons are. That ain't the scenario. I think the filing in and of itself was possibly wholly unnecessary because, as mentioned, 6 attorneys. Realistically, he probably wasn't going to have a big trial roll because they couldn't have gotten along. He just didn't have to show up. We file these a lot of times because what ends up happening is we want to make sure one lawyer, one client, I'm asking to be removed. This guy needs a new lawyer. In Diddy's situation, he doesn't need a new lawyer. He's got 5 others. So I think it's kind of a shot realistically, either at Diddy or somebody else on the legal team. I don't think it has anything to do with the underground facts either, though. I think this is all we can't get.
One theory suggests the lawyer might have clashed with Diddy himself, hinting at possible disagreements over strategy, or perhaps even a deeper ethical dilemma. The second theory floating around is that the lawyer's departure wasn't about Diddy at all, but rather about issues with the rest of the legal team. With 5 other attorneys in the mix, it's not hard to imagine power struggles, differing opinions, or even flat-out chaos. If the legal camp surrounding Diddy is this unstable, what does it say about the state of his defense?
Says, let me go. Now, generally, an attorney will only leave a client for only like a select few reasons. One of them, if a client can't pay. That's a big one. But, well, we know Diddy could pay. For those of you that don't know, he got a lot of money. So that's probably not the reason. Another one being the lawyer might have found out that their client's crimes were much, much worse than they expected. Like so bad that they just can't morally stick with the case and they gotta go. That might be the reason, because as far as we know, you and I, Diddy's crimes are terrible, but his lawyers know much more than what we know. They know how far Diddy might have went. So Anthony, Diddy's lawyer who left, might have seen something he didn't want to see and said, look, I can't even work with bro anymore. Now, lastly, the reason I'm leaning towards is maybe Anthony had problems with the legal team or Diddy himself. Maybe Anthony wanted to defend Diddy a certain way, the other lawyers didn't agree, or Anthony may have had problems with Diddy. Because see, the thing is, Diddy is notorious for being unreasonable. See, what you gotta understand is you and I live in a different reality than Diddy. I was trying to explain this in a past video when I told the story of Diddy blowing up Kid Cudi's car. Allegedly. Now, you don't gotta watch the video to understand that Diddy blew up a man's car. Because in Diddy's mind, he can do that. Now, here's where things start to get wicked. Wicked part being Diddy's mind. You need to really listen to what I'm saying here, because I can sit here and give you a million stories about times Diddy went off the handle or did something crazy, but you'll find that they all have 2 things in common. One, the shock of the things he's saying, like he be talking to people any type of way, and 2, the shock of what he's trying to get done. Okay, listen closely. In this particular video, for example, Diddy's telling the person on the phone that he wants a TV show time slot. He's not taking no for an answer. Diddy's saying, just do it, just do it. The person on the phone probably saying, bro, I can't just give you someone's time slot. Diddy's saying, give me that time slot. The person on the phone finally says, yes, Diddy says, whatever I want, I get. Now I know what you're thinking. What? That's just business. Sure. I'm just trying to paint a picture for you. Listen. It's all the stuff Diddy's done to Cassie in front of the whole world. One of the times she runs away from him, she gets a call from one of his assistants saying, Diddy wants you back right now, or he's gonna come find you. She don't come back, so he thinks she's with Kid Cudi, goes over to Kid Cudi's house, blows up Kid Cudi's car. Allegedly. Does all of this sound like someone in the same reality as you and I? So imagine you're Diddy's lawyer. Now, I'm not saying this is why Diddy's lawyer left, but listen, imagine you're Diddy's lawyer and reports come out, Diddy is intimidating witnesses. Reports actually came out saying Diddy's intimidating witnesses. You're Diddy's lawyer and you say, Diddy, why do you think you can get away with this? You can't do that. And Diddy tells you, you're my lawyer. Fix it. You say, Diddy, just don't do that. This is the real world. They want you in jail. And Diddy says, look, just get me off. Poor choice of words when referring to Diddy, but all I'm saying is I can imagine it's a frustrating environment to work with Diddy, doing outlandish things and just expecting you to deal with them. Now again, Diddy's lawyer could have also left because he had problems with the other lawyers, or he just didn't want to work with Diddy anymore. But either way, Diddy's going to trial with 5 other lawyers, and their defense is Diddy did do all those things. There's video evidence, so it's hard to deny, but it was all consensual. Please don't give him life.
It actually turns out that there is a major power struggle inside Diddy's legal team. Rico and, the lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, they have been butting heads for months over how to handle the trafficking charges in court. While the lead attorney Agnifilo has been publicly denying the allegations, Rico had a different approach in mind, but he wasn't given the control needed to execute it. From what we know, Anthony Rico had 2 major concerns. The first one is the lead attorney's legal approach has been to outright deny the trafficking charges, claiming that Diddy's so-called freak-offs were consensual encounters between adults. Rico, on the other hand, had a different legal strategy in mind, but he wasn't able to push it forward. I don't know exactly what his strategy was going to be, but in the end, he's an experienced lawyer, so I'm sure he had an angle for how it was going to benefit Diddy's bottom line, right? And then they also disagreed on when to actually go to trial. So Anthony Rico strongly believed that they wouldn't be ready for the scheduled May 5th trial date and wanted to ask for more time, but his co-counsel refused to delay, right? And then on top of that, Rico wasn't even able to speak to Diddy directly, which is kind of weird because he's representing him, right? And then apparently they kept on blocking him from that access, and at that point he decided that he couldn't properly defend Diddy, so he walked away from the case for that reason. So now Diddy's team is down 1 high-profile criminal defense attorney at a time when he needs all the legal firepower he can get. And when a lawyer with this much experience walks away from your case, that's never a good sign, okay? Now there are some other rumors, if you will, that the reason why he walked away was because he couldn't deal with the crimes of Diddy. Did Diddy eat people? I've never heard of a lawyer turning that kind of high-profile case down. What the hell did that man do? Now that tweet right there had over 300,000 likes on Twitter, so a lot of people are obviously paying attention to the story and they're obviously very confused, okay? Like, how the hell do you walk away from a case that's this high profile? Especially since lawyers are some of the biggest capitalists out there, okay? They want that money.